Alright, welcome back. So, the big question now is where you got that money from. Oh. Now isn't this intriguing? And? Dear. How long do you plan to let these ridiculous remarks stand? Sit down, Natsuhi-san. Oh dang, she got told. Let's cut to the point. Aniki, you've been diverting Dad's private funds for your own businesses. There's pretty much no room for doubt. If you think we've made some kind of mistake, please feel free to explain. Rudolph, don't call it diverting funds. This is embezzlement, plain and simple. A huge crime that can be criminally prosecuted. Man, at this rate, no witch is gonna have time to kill them. They're all gonna kill each other. This sort of rudeness cannot be tolerated. How can you face the successor, capital letter, to the Ushiromiya head family, more capital letters, and level these absurd accusations? They aren't absurd, they're right on the mark. I'm sure he'd like to somehow make his business succeed and recover his losses, but his debts keep getting bigger. He's just trying to cover up the failure of one gamble by making an even bigger one. Is that an actual tattoo on her arm? I'm intrigued. It's only natural that he'd try to grab any source of funding close at hand. Let me be frank. Nissan, what you're doing is embezzlement. You're betraying Father. You know that we'll have the court settle this after it's all over, right? Do you think that kind of person has any right to call themselves the successor to the Ushiromiya head family? Oh, they're going in. Oh, you dare to claim that he has betrayed the family head? You no longer have the right to straddle the threshold of the glorious Ushiromiya family. What does that even mean? Leave this place at once. Now! Get out! Natsuhi, who had already reached the limits of her anger, shouted at Eva in rage. Oh god, her head's gonna explode. It's like a Psyduck. She then pointed alternately at Eva and the hallway, demanding that she leave. Eva took out a folding fan and fanned herself with it, glaring maliciously at Natsuhi, as though silently daring her to repeat what she'd said. Oh, bitch fight. However, her mouth was still smiling, curved in the shape of a crescent moon. In that unpleasant silence, Rosa gulped. Hey, Natsuhi-ne-san, to whom do you think you are speaking in such a tone? Oh, I am speaking to the exceedingly rude sister of my husband. As the person in charge of the main family's kitchen, I cannot overlook any more of this. What does being in charge of the kitchen have to do with it? In charge of the kitchen? He he he, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Yeah, I hear that. Ooh. Be silent, lowly maidservant. Damn, get wrecked. Eva folded the fan with a snap and rose to her feet energetically. Compared to the elegance and playfulness she'd shown until a second ago, she was now unimaginably aggressive. It's getting real. How foolish. You stand down. Before ever of the Ushiromiya family. You tell me to stand down? Me, Ushiromiya Eva, the third ranked in the Ushiromiya family hierarchy and the one allowed to sit at the left shoulder of the head? Go off. Know your place. And then look at your shabby self in a mirror. Oh, she is not holding back. Where is the symbol of the wing on your clothes? Where are you permitted to wear the one-winged eagle? Aren't you nothing more? Oh, dang. Aren't you nothing more than a borrowed womb to house the next successor to the Ushiromiya family? Dang, that's cruel. Understand your place, you common housemaid. Jeez. Eva's face twisted hideously as her words gouged into Natsuhi's heart like talons, wrenching at it. Man, she did not hold back. There were 100 ways Natsuhi wanted to respond. However, her anger and sorrow crushed her throat, and none of those words managed to make it to her mouth. Her anger had nowhere to go and became a single hot tear that slowly dripped down. What's wrong? If you have something to say, please do so. Come on. Eva faced her with a provocative gaze. However, Natsuhi could do nothing but tremble, her clenched fists quivering. Kraus quietly broke that powder keg tension. Whew. Natsuhi, leave your seat. You should go cool your head. What? Natsuhi, resenting the fact that her husband had not come to her aid, shifted the focus of her attack. Dear, don't you understand what they're saying about you? These people are baselessly calling you a traitor to father. They are making light of the fact that we protect the glory of the Ushiromiya family, even though we are constantly expending every effort to earn that glory from father. They trample all of that underfoot with their hateful rambling. And you don't even try to fight back. Why? I'm only standing up for us because you won't. But you've been putting the entire burden on me for some time now. And now you tell me to go cool my head? It's always me. Go in. Even though I have always considered this family's affairs so seriously, you've... I don't think she's okay. Just a thought. Natsuhi was already unable to hide her tears. She flew from the room in that state. After that, all that remained was a somewhat embarrassed mood about the parlor. When the sound of footsteps grew distant and silence returned, Kraus shrugged his shoulders slightly. Well, that went well. I apologize for my wife. She has always been bad at controlling her emotions. Well, clearly she didn't grow up with you monsters. It's even been rough for me. If that's what's been managing your household, you must suffer to no end, Nissan. Giggle, giggle. Oh man. Madam? It's nothing. Leave me be. I think her head is actually going to explode. Natsuhi flew into her room and threw herself onto the bed, lamenting. Those heart-wrenching sobs reached Kumasawa in the hallway. Poor Madam Natsuhi. There is a deep enmity between her and Eva-sama. Explaining their relationship would be very trying for me as a woman. The Ushiromiya family holds blood in high regard, but if a woman marries and leaves the family, they are normally removed from the family register. So just like the imperial family. Thus, under normal circumstances, Eva-sama should have been removed when she married Hideyoshi-sama. Ooh. However, there is no one deserving of blame in this matter. The madam certainly bears no guilt. They're nothing to call it other than a whim of God. What? That doesn't make sense. Kraus-sama and Natsuhi-sama were not blessed with children for some time. After all, this is the male-dominant Ushiromiya family. A wife is merely a tool to create an heir. To create why is there no N? If such a wife cannot fulfill her only duty, she will not even be treated as a human. Now we can see that. It pains me to remember how the master tortured Madam during that time. Back then, a wedding between Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama was being discussed. Eva-sama was sly. Taking advantage of Madam's inability to become pregnant, she gained the favor of the master. She inspired him to allow her to marry and give birth to a successor herself, making sure to avoid transferring her name out of the Ushidomiya register. Ho ho, she's crafty. There was a vast difference in the Ushidomiya hierarchy between Madam, who married into the Ushidomiya family and was treated like an outsider, and Eva-sama, who was related to the family by blood and whose husband took on the Ushidomiya name. Whew. Furthermore, Eva-sama actually gave birth first, and to a boy. As for how much weaker Madam's position was than Eva-sama's, well, I believe you could see for yourself. I'm sure Madam is tormented by the thought that if she'd only gotten pregnant earlier, the master wouldn't have accepted Eva-sama's request to keep her last name after marriage, and Eva-sama wouldn't have been permitted to act as arrogantly as she did today. However, that was not Madam's fault. All of the blame lies with God's whims and the stork that delivered Jessica late. Even so, Madam won't allow herself to see things this way. She probably can't help but cry bitter tears as a woman at her inability to carry out the duties expected of a wife. Ah, how sad. I cannot do anything except watch over her from the shadows. Lurking. Always. Ooh. What's the time? Why are we going back? Are we going back to the kids? Okay, well, that family meeting went well. We crossed the hall again on our way to the entrance. As we did, we once again spotted that witch's portrait. However, spotted is probably not the best word to describe that experience. It was more like our eyes were inexorably drawn to it. That woman's eyes, with their sage-like glamour, definitely had the power to make those who viewed it stand rooted on the spot. So, this is the witch, Beatrice. Wonder if that story's true. Ooh? Battler doesn't believe? Back when he had asked what this picture was, the first person to tell him had been Maria. Therefore, when Battler showed signs of doubt, Maria must have felt that Battler didn't have faith in her. You meanie. Of course, that wasn't what Battler meant. Maria ran up to the portrait and began banging on a plate hanging below it. Maybe the title of the portrait was written there. Maria, trying to prove that she wasn't lying, obstinately continued to hit the plate. Ah, sorry about that. It's not like I doubt anything you said, Maria. Ooh, Battler believes. Ooh. When he patted Maria's head and apologized, she seemed to accept it, sticking out her chest and proudly ooh-oohing. What's this? What's this? My beloved witch Beatrice. Behold the sweet fish river. What's with this weird, huge epitaph? So many words I've never actually said out loud before. The plate did have the title of the portrait written on it, but it was much too big to contain only that. Beneath the title was what appeared to be a long epitaph. If you just skimmed over it, several unnerving words would jump out at you. Incredible, isn't it? Grandfather had that made. Pretty deep, huh? Ooh, I know. It's the place where the gold's hidden. Ooh? Wait, is that the story about the Ushidomiya family's hidden gold? Let's go gold digging. Now there's another thing I remember from long ago. Hold on, Aniki. Is this for real? Grandfather had this made, but he never said anything about this picture or the epitaph. Even so, amongst the family, it is often whispered that it indicates the location of Grandfather's hidden gold, and that he will relinquish the inheritance and the gold to the person who solves the riddle. Ooh. Ooh. I heard that too. I heard that too. Lots and lots of gold. Yeah. Well, something like that. Something like 10 metric tons of gold bars. What? What? I think it's fake though. Still, when you read about it in an epitaph like this, it almost seems real. Why do they keep saying that word? I think I already explained grandfather's upbringing, but let me also mention the Ushinomiya family's legend of the gold. Yes, tell me about it. Grandfather succeeded the Ushinomiya family after it was destroyed in the Great Kanto earthquake. And by successfully riding the stormy seas after the war, he managed to accumulate great wealth. Yes, we heard about that. That much of the story everyone knows. Indeed, we do. However, this is where the strange part begins. Alright, tell me about it. Part of it involves grandfather's black magic obsession, so its credibility is extremely low. But, well, wait until the end before you doubt or make fun of it. Okay, let's go. After the war, grandfather correctly predicted what the future would hold and won in a huge gamble, accumulating a vast store of wealth. But there's a mysterious legend about how he gained his initial funding. Grandfather came from a branch family and had no connections in the business world or the financial world. Even though he later built connections with the occupying forces, he supposedly started as a nameless person who hadn't yet gained anyone's trust. Okay, it takes trust to gather money. There's no way anyone would lend money to someone they didn't trust. That makes sense. How did grandfather, who had no reputation at all, manage to obtain his first vast chunk of funds? Bank robbery. When asked that question, grandfather supposedly answered like this. On a certain day, I encountered the golden witch Beatrice. Grandfather then went on and on about his continuing research into alchemy and techniques for summoning demons in order to become a great magician. Ho ho, now we're getting good. And the entity summoned as a result of the demon calling ceremony was the golden witch Beatrice. Ooh. He then apparently made a contract by which he would receive fortune and honor, in exchange for his own soul. The witch then granted grandfather 10 tons of gold. I don't even know how much gold that is. Grandfather used this gold as collateral to prepare a vast quantity of funds, which he then used to multiply his wealth many times over and revive the Ushinomiya family. It seems this story's so old that even our parents were told it when they were still children. So, back when our parents were young, they explored this island in all sorts of ways, believing that the gold grandfather had received from the witch might be hidden somewhere. However, since there was the danger of them getting lost in the abandoned forest, grandmother began to spread the story that the witch lived in the forest and approaching it was forbidden. I remember that old story. When we were little, we also went all over the island searching for treasure after our parents told us about it. Didn't we get lost in the forest once, then start crying until some of the servants found us? Our parents got so mad. Dang, that takes me back. We sure were idiots, weren't we? As opposed to now. After all, grandfather only bought this island after using those funds to get rich, right? You don't know that he didn't ship 10 tons of gold over to the island on his boats? You don't know. That means he must have had the gold before coming here. Or did he? There's no way the gold's on this island. Or was it? That's not necessarily so. Maybe the gold was hidden on the island from the beginning, and he bought the whole island just to ensure it'd be his, and his alone. Now you're thinking. There was a whole 10 metric tons of it, right? It seems more realistic that he'd try to secure the place where it was hidden, rather than try to move it all. This epitaph was made 2 years ago. And since grandfather wrote it himself, yeah, it does make the legend of the gold seem more believable. The so-called witch's gold that revived the Ushinomiya family weighed 10 tons. Maybe that's sleeping somewhere, ready to be turned over to whoever can solve grandfather's riddle. Maybe that's why he did it. I guess that sounds like grandfather's style or something. Ihihi. If it's true, that's pretty incredible. The epitaph carved into the plate was very mysterious, with something like a poem or a song written on it. That text was incredibly disturbing, filled with the signs of grandfather's black magic hobby, and its contents were in truly bad taste. But it could definitely be viewed as a puzzle which, if solved, might lead to the hidden gold. Whether that's what he intended or not, I can't even imagine what his true motive might have been. All we know for sure is that grandfather put his shady epitaph here so that everyone in the family could see it. We also know that he's hinted at the existence of the gold without ever talking about where it might be hidden, at least so far. I bet it's under the house. These facts then were embellished by the imaginations of our parents, who were convinced that grandfather was challenging us to a battle of wits. My money's on Maria. Sounds just like my dad, so greedy that he'd take something like this so seriously. He may laugh at grandfather's black magic obsession, but he'd still believe this story about the hidden gold. It just sounds so good. Well, it's certainly not a realistic story. At that time, when grandfather was still nameless and had no connections, there was no way anyone would just lend him a massive quantity of gold bars for free. If such a person actually did exist, it's not unthinkable that grandfather would call such a sponsor a witch. Yeah, but it's 10 tons. 10 tons. If you cash that in, how much would it come to? I mean, it'd have to be a ridiculous amount, right? It certainly would be a ridiculous amount. They say that the total amount of gold mined by humankind since the dawn of history is 100,000 metric tons at most. That one of 10,000 of all the gold humankind has obtained throughout history should belong to just one person is just insane. On top of that, this witch supposedly had all that gold collected in one place and was able to lend it to grandfather just like that. We're not talking about any ordinary person. Well, to me, that 10 tons number seems pretty fishy. After all, no one's actually seen it except grandfather, right? Even if we assume that some generous witch existed and lent him some gold, maybe it was closer to 10 kilograms than 10 tons. Even 10 kilograms would be a pretty incredible sum, right? Ooh, 10 kilograms of gold is how much? Maria, who wasn't following the story and felt like she was being spoken to in riddles, finally found a place where she could ask us a question. It was a question I also wanted answered right then. Whether it was 10 kilograms or 10 tons, it still felt like a huge amount, but I had no idea exactly how huge. George Anarchy folded his arms and tried to remember the market price of gold. Ah yes, also stored in the recesses of my brain. Well, even the value of gold is affected by the market, and the value of physical gold can change depending on its purity and the trustworthiness of the foundry. You'd also need to pay handling fees to cash it in. However, that doesn't change the fact that it's a precious metal, and some people estimate that humanity will mine all of the world's gold within half a century if gold mining continues at its current rate. Just guessing haphazardly, I think you could expect a price of about 2 million yen per kilogram. Okay. Whoa! Just now I randomly said 10 kilograms since it sounded smaller, but even that would be worth 20 million yen, wouldn't it? Okay, but that's yen, so that's far, far less than $20 million. Ooh? I weigh 28 kilograms. Which means if we had Maria-chan's weight in gold, we could estimate it's worth at over 50 million yen. That's just unbelievable. How much would 10 tons be then? 10 kilograms is 20 million yen, which you multiply by 1,000. So, 20 billion yen? $1 billion. What the hell? How much is 20 billion yen actually worth? We can only measure it relative to our own pocketbooks. I got 20 cents. Anyway, let's say that a person's wages over a lifetime are about 200 million yen. You grow up and work like crazy, sacrificing your life for your company, and you're finally freed as you approach old age. And then you die. Everything including retirement money might add up to about 200 million yen. In other words, that's the amount of money that had been made throughout a human's life. No, you could even call it the value of a life. Ooh, he's getting deep. So 100 times that sum is an unbelievable amount of money. If you work from age 20 to age 60, that's 40 years of work. So it's equal to 4,000 years of work wages. They did the math. The monster math. If you worked every day starting from the Jomon period, you'd only reach that number about now. Dang. Ooh? Is 20 billion yen a lot? Pah, it's nothing. Heck yeah, it's a lot. Maria, you love shortcake, right? Ooh, tell me, how many shortcakes could I buy? You could buy more shortcake than you could possibly eat for the rest of your life. No, you do the math, Battler, you do the math. However, while that might be possible with 20 billion yen in cash, I don't think it would be very realistic to have that much in gold bars all in one place. Just as I said, gold is extremely heavy, so it isn't exactly convenient as a method of storing wealth. Sure, you could imagine someone gathering their fortune together as incredibly high-value stocks or precious gems. You often hear of people who traded their wealth for precious gems so that they could carry it around with them during the chaotic times of the war. But you don't usually hear stories of people exchanging their wealth for gold. It may be heavy, but it's the most trusted and stable form of wealth internationally, so maybe that was important. For example, bonds are just scraps of paper if the whole country goes under. You can also look at it that way, but even one 10-kilogram ingot is pretty heavy to carry around. Haven't you heard? A 50-kilogram person can't carry a 50-kilogram bag over their shoulder. What? Yes, they can. With that many gold bars, the amount of labor and risk for one person would be hard to calculate. So what you're saying is, while it'd be one thing if you had a stack of banknotes worth 20 billion yen, 20 billion yen in gold would be such a big mountain that, practically, it'd be kinda pointless. That's right. Although the legend of the gold does have a pretty interesting ring to it. Just the part about the 10 tons of gold makes it pretty much impossible. Maybe the trees are made of gold. If you think about it logically like that, it sounds obviously fake. Maybe the water is gold. Haha, kinda brings you back down to reality. Anyway, that's grandfather for you. Oh. Maybe he exaggerated the story of how some kind, wealthy person gave him a loan by saying he got 10 tons of gold from a witch. Even the number 10 tons feels pretty symbolic. You mean like his gratitude for the money he borrowed was worth 10 tons of gold or something? Hehehe. Maybe some rich man's leisured wife generously granted it to grandfather. And maybe he started calling this person a witch. I see. Jessica's example isn't bad. Someone who'd generously lend a huge sum of money to grandfather when he still had no reputation might as well be called a witch. Furthermore, grandfather actually did use that money to build a vast amount of wealth later on. The fact that this person was so great at judging people might also justify calling her a witch. Also, since she went to the trouble of lending all that money, she might have enthusiastically overseen how it was spent. The decision to unexpectedly get involved with the occupying forces and profit from the Korean War demands might have been inspired by the witch herself. That might explain why he claimed to have received both wealth and honor from her. Alright, we're going to end this episode here, and we'll find out more about the witch and her gold in the next one. See ya!